Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erin Kopek, and you have joined our HiNotes presentation for today. I also have my colleague, Whitney Morris here, about to share her expertise on mastering recruitment and retention in 2024. We picked this topic. We've heard a lot of questions, have had a lot of outreach from our customers on trying to crack the code. What are some great things that you need to consider when recruiting? How do I retain my employees? So today that's what we're going to talk about. So super excited. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. You're set up in listen only mode. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, we definitely encourage that. You can use the messaging function at the bottom of your GoToWebinar panel. So feel free to find that. And 100% we want to make this interactive. So ask questions, think about those questions, and we could do those throughout as well. So like I said, this call will last less than an hour. We're excited to have Whitney join us today. And Whitney, I pass it off to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Erin, and hello, everybody. Glad you could make it. And like Erin said, just want to share a few things about recruitment and retention, that's current and relevant to us right now. Want to go over kind of the current state of recruitment, what employers are looking for in their ideal employer, and then how to retain your team that you already have. So first, a little bit about me. So I'm Whitney Morris, Senior Professional Recruitment Consultant here at HireLevel. I've been here for a little over 2 years, but I brought with me about 20 years of leadership in learning and development, human resources, and project management experience. So all of that comes from my fun fact, which is that I've had 21 different jobs. So I've been working since I was 14. I started off as just a cashier at a frozen custard and burger joint, and went on to do many different things from a birthday hostess at Chuck E. Cheese to opening a bakery at 4 a.m. every morning to bake the bread. I went on to work for GNC. I was a patient transporter at a hospital, so I took patients from the ER up to their rooms. And then, I've been a barista, bartender, but then I got into childcare once I moved to Nashville about 24 years ago, and youth development with the YMCA, and was a counselor with the after school program. And then when I left there, after being there about 14 years, I was a specialist, and I oversaw our after school program for actually 3 different counties, and had the responsibility of running a $3 million operating budget. So I learned definitely a lot at the YMCA, and then, nonprofit is its own kind of beast. But throughout all of that, well, after the Y, I went to help open and run 2 private preschools in the Nashville area. So I've gotten to be a part of a couple startups, which is interesting as well. It's a lot of learning there and quite the learning experience. So throughout all of those roles, I've learned what I like, what I don't like, what type of environment I operate best in. And what I learned was that I really love all things HR. And I like to navigate through the gray and figure out those challenges. And so just kind of learned through a lot of that adversity. But one thing that I learned was that recruitment is a huge piece of HR, and building a team is just included when you talk about, working with people. So what I'd like to do before we kind of jump into the current state of recruitment is go over if I can find my mouse, go over the definition of recruitment, just to be clear on kind of what we're discussing today. So recruitment is the process of attracting, screening, and selecting candidates for an open role in an organization. So it can also include hiring, of course, onboarding, but it's such a large process when you talk about recruitment and what it includes, and it has such a great impact on the success of a business. So really a lot is at stake, when we're talking about recruitment. I do have a question for everybody though. If you can put in the chat, and Aaron, if you'll let me know, if we have any responses, put in the chat for me, what do you think is the company's largest expense in their budget? What's the largest expense?
We have our first response, payroll,
Ding, ding, ding.
recruitment,
Yes.
turnover, labor
Yeah.
benefits.
Yep. Yep. So you're all right. When you're looking at employee labor costs and payroll, it's all kind of lumped together. And you're looking at wages, benefits, turnover, all of that. So that really can account for up to 70% of a business's operating costs, which that's huge, huge. So when you think about it, your internal team and your whoever you pay for, right? That represents your company or your business. That's your largest asset. That is your largest asset, and they're your biggest advocate, right, of who you are. And so it's really important that we treat them as such. And that's why the recruitment piece, and then of course retention, is so important. And just keeping that in mind. When I first started in recruitment about 20 years ago, I was really focused on filling jobs quickly, right? Getting warm bodies in. I had about 120 openings to fill in a youth development after school program. And not too long after I started it doing that way, I learned that it was impacting how I did my job, what type of program I was running, the integrity, of my operation that I had with my name on it. But it also had to do with, or it affected the other team that was already there, the team members that I already currently had, which then affected more turnover. And so I had to change my strategy. I had to pivot and say that this isn't working. I'm doing something wrong. What am I doing wrong? And assess what wasn't working at the time. And at that time, we would get a stack of applications like that big, and we could weed through the ones we wanted, and then hand the ones we didn't want to a different department to see if they would be interested in hiring them. But that's not the case anymore, right? It's completely different. We have to fight for candidates. We have to search for them. We have to seek them out. We have to reach out to them on LinkedIn or through Facebook or whatnot, to try to find those candidates and entice them to come work for us. And so it's a very different time. And for somebody who hasn't done recruitment, sounds simple, right? Post a job, interview, hire, go. It's just not that simple anymore. We do have to woo candidates now. It's a part of the process. And it's just something, we kind of have to accept. So it's a part of recruitment. So looking at the current state of recruitment, surprise, there are a lot of job openings still right now. So according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, there were nearly 9 million openings at the end of February. So putting that into perspective, back in 2009, right after the 2008 recession, we had about 2.5 million openings. And then in COVID in 2020, there were about a little over 4.5 million openings. And then in 2022, we jumped to 12 million openings. So we went from 4 million or 4 to 5 million in 2020 to over 12 million openings in 22. So that's when it kind of peaked. And everybody opened everything up. Everybody realized like life is going to go on after the pandemic. And that's when people started really struggling. And now we're sitting at close to 9 million now. So we've come down a little bit since 22, but we still have a lot of openings. And what I'm seeing and experiencing a lot is we have all of these openings, right? And then we have all of these candidates that don't have the skills to match these openings. So we know there's a skills gap, a huge skills gap right now that we're dealing with. But it's on multiple levels and markets. People have moved. They've had to make large kind of life-changing decisions to move their families to different areas for jobs. And so it's left some huge kind of misalignments between openings and candidates' skills. So that's kind of one of the big things that we're dealing with right now, and that hopefully we can address here in just a little bit. So, okay. So the question is, how do we attract the ideal candidate persona? Well, one of the first things you have to do is figure out what that is, right? So in order to know what to look for or how to look for it, you have to know what to look for. So that starts with typically a job description, right? That's what we go with, or we look at our internal team members and write down, what we're looking for. But really, that's our job ad. And so a lot of times when we look at that, we don't assess. Again, we might use a job description from a long time ago, or it's just what we always use. Well, right now, like I said earlier, we really have to woo our candidates. We have to entice them. We have to pull them in, and it starts with the job ad is one of the ways. So what does your job description or ad look like? Is it, formatting? Is that inviting? Is it consistent? Is it really, really long to where nobody wants to read it? Because these days you have someone's attention for about 30 seconds. You get a 3 seconds to really make an impression. But if they're pulled in after that first sentence, then they might read a little more. But if you have 30 bullet points listed, it's too many. Really, you should have 4 to 8 max. And so again, you want a concise job description so that an employee knows what they're getting into. But if you list too many things, it's going to be seen as complex. It just kind of gives a messy, look to things, and candidates definitely don't want that. They want something short and sweet that just draws them in. The next piece is transparency. So it's kind of a topic that is iffy, and it kind of runs the gamut on companies that want to list, specifically pay and benefits, and then some that don't. I know right now we have 10 states that have passed a law where it has to be listed, and there's 14 that are proposed. So it's coming. So my advice would be to, kind of take hold of that, grasp it, look at your the pay range that you're looking at, look at what's in the area. At HireLevel, as a recruitment firm, we do wage analysis all the time. And that just helps to see, are we in the right market, industry, are we hitting the mark on pay and benefits and things of that nature, and level of the job. So, but also you need to consider, is it in line with your current team, financial compensation structure? And if it's not, then you might have a bigger question or, task to kind of look at. And that's been the concern. It's been the concern with several clients I've worked with that have had to say, oh, well, we're not ready to post pay because we're concerned about what our internal team is going to say about that range. And that's something that has to be considered, because right now we have to look at being fair, but also being transparent, because that's what people are looking for. It is coming down the pipe. So I would highly suggest, if you haven't started doing that, start looking at, how you determine pay now. Make sure that's all lined out, and that will save you from some legality issues to make sure you're not discriminating. And so make sure that's clear, and that's something we could help you do, if we needed to, if you needed assistance. But it's just really important that you're consistent with that. Then also transparent with, again, what the job entails, other benefits, and just be clear with it. And again, that just helps to know, well, it helps to weed out candidates who who might be interested or ones that aren't. So it saves time. A lot of candidates will just zoom on through and pass through that job description, pass by it if the pay's not listed and benefits. And then doesn't match your employment branding. So in the job ad, you do have a chance, again, to list a little blurb about your company and make sure you highlight why they should come work for you. This kind of goes along with the employee value proposition. So again, the transparency piece, but a strong employee value proposition is going to outline the monetary and non-monetary rewards that you offer to employees in exchange for experience, skills, and effort, of course, their time with you. So again, when a company has that outlined, it's clear. It shows stability, right? It shows intentionality to your people to show like, okay, they've got it together. They know what they're doing. They've thought about it, which means they're going to think about me. So it just speaks volumes when you have these things, together. And I think that was it on that one. Yep. Okay, so what are employees looking for in their ideal employer? So there's kind of two sides to this. There's some more tangible items, things that you could list on a job description. And then there's kind of some non-tangible items. So we're going to start with the tangibles. So the first one is competitive employee benefits. So when you look at this, obviously there's tons of options, right? So it's obviously it's pay, PTO, healthcare, different, flex spending accounts, just all those types of, different. I mean, some people have, lunch served every day. So these are just things that you need to think about, and again, make sure they're clearly outlined. And just because you don't offer everything doesn't mean you're not an ideal employer, but what you need to do is kind of structure or frame, how you list those things in the way that best shows how they benefit the person. Someone's always going to ask their what's in it for me statement, right? When we're looking at a job, we're looking at anything, buying a car, what have you, it's going to be what's in it for me. What am I going to get out of it? And so that's going to be one of the first things when somebody's looking at a job description. Well, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? And so listing those competitive employee benefits is key. And again, if you can't offer healthcare, okay, for those states that you don't have to, then, do you offer life insurance? Do you offer, $300 a month reimbursement? So, something in that regard. So make sure to really tout what you do and to share those things. Don't hide them. It's really important. So next is flexible work arrangements. Again, not everybody can be flexible. Obviously, when you're looking at a welder, you have to be on site, to do that job. But some options or some opportunities, you can be more flexible. And so I would say here, if this is an option that you can give to your people, make sure to stay consistent with it amongst your team and make sure you have that policy outlined. Again, keep you out of some hot water, hopefully. But I know here at HireLevel, I love the fact that if we need to run to the doctor, for an hour or two here and there, or leave early for some, we can do those things, and I'm not going to stress about, is somebody counting my minutes, of time. For example, my youngest is graduating 5th grade in a few weeks, and this his last month to go have a parent lunch at his school. And I know that I'm going to get to go enjoy that benefit and not have to stress about okay, I've only got 2 more minutes. Oh, I got to go. I can enjoy that in peace and go back to work and finish it. So think about those pieces as well. It doesn't have to be necessarily work from home all the time or hybrid or whatnot. Just think about those little perks that might help you stand out. And then the third one, accessible training and upskilling opportunities. Huge. This is a huge one right now. Again, with the gap that we're experiencing and that I've seen so much of between jobs that are open and then candidates that have those skills, it's really important to make sure that you're providing opportunities for your people, to learn and grow. So a lot of times, employees come to you and it's not their forever gig, and that's okay. We've all had stepping stones. I've had 20 of them. So, that's just a part of life and growth and figuring out what's best and, the kind of the stage of life that you're in. But when you are able to provide that training and learning development and upskilling opportunities, for your people, it shows that, hey, I'm willing to invest in you. I'm willing to put in the time and effort and money, frankly, to show like, hey, this is really important, And then also it shows your clients and customers that you're willing to really put the money into your people to make sure they are subject matter experts. I know I'm so grateful that here at HireLevel, they are sponsoring me to take my SHRM exam on May 31st so that I can be an expert in all things HR. And so that's something that we really push here at HireLevel, and I appreciate it so much. But it's a huge benefit, to your people. And then personalized career goals, growth. So again, not everybody wants to be a manager. Not everybody wants to climb the ladder. Some people, want to stay an assistant director, of a program forever. So I think it's just really important here to know that it's personalized to that person. And it's not like, here's your path and here's where everybody goes. Well, no, everybody's different. And these days, it's really important to recognize the individuality of each person. Maybe you don't understand it or, something like that, but you have to try and then understand that everybody has their own, personal path, and that's okay. And that's something that you're willing to work with. And then inclusive work environments. So really, when we're talking about inclusion, that's the culture in which a mix of people can come to work, feel comfortable, confident to be themselves, work in a way that suits them, but also, of course, meets the business needs. So it doesn't mean that you have to provide this crazy work environment where like you have a ping pong table and people can work by standing on their heads or something crazy like that. No, it's just saying, hey, you can come as you are. We might have some stipulations, right? We're customer facing. These are expectations here. But we understand that you are who you are. We appreciate your skills, your talents, no judgment, as long as we can get the job done. So those are the top 5 kind of tangible things. So some questions in regards to physical recruitment, and some questions to ask yourself and your HR team when you're looking at recruitment as a whole. So what current recruitment channels do we utilize? There are so many right now, right? So then you have your socials, and of course, all your job boards. Here at HireLevel, we have our LinkedIn recruiter license. And so that allows us to, as a recruitment firm, when I'm trying to fill a role for a client, I can utilize the passive candidate database that's in LinkedIn and reach out, to candidates and communicate that way. But then also, of course, posting jobs and whatnot. But then we also have so many internal options as well. And so you really need to think about what are the current recruitment channels that you utilize? Can you access more on your own? Or might you need to utilize a recruitment firm that can help you, kind of have access to those tools to where you don't have to pay for that, but, we incur that cost. So a LinkedIn recruiter license is about $9,000. So that's, we know not every business can take that on, right? When you're only filling 1 to 2 roles a year. So that's something that's a perk to working with, a recruitment firm. Another question is, are we looking in the right places where we might find the type of candidates we need? So, you're likely not going to find a mechanic on LinkedIn, as far as applying for those types of roles. Those channels typically don't align. And so you just have to think about, where are you going to find the candidates that you're looking for? Is it going to be job fairs? Is it going to be socials? Is it going to be having an internal team member or stakeholder, go out and try to recruit new candidates that you need? So you just need to really be mindful of, where are you looking and what are your options to look elsewhere? Are we asking for referrals from our internal team members? That's a huge one. When you have your largest asset right in front of your face, who should be your biggest cheerleader and advocate, are you asking them for referrals? Do you have a program set up to where if they refer somebody, you each get $500? Now, maybe it's not right away, but we've done that before, where we have, the person stays 60 days, they get $250 or $100 or so much, and then 6 months they get so much, and so on. So there's different options out there, but this is the time to be creative with it. So that's one of those things to ask yourself. Do we have a defined talent selection process? This is key from really the legality standpoint of it. Discrimination, want to make sure that we're being consistent with it. Asking everybody the same questions, documenting it appropriately, making sure you're asking questions that you can ask, and then also choosing candidates that match the job description, and not because you like them, or something kind of personal. It really has to be, you have to be clear on that, and that's something we can help you with. Again, all of it can be really sketchy as far as what you can and can't ask people, all the way from pay and what they've just made their last job, to what type of transportation they have to work. You actually can't ask that, because that could be discrimination. So there's a lot of little things that unless you kind of know the information, you might ask the wrong thing. So that's something that we definitely can help with. Are we reviewing and assessing our current recruitment efforts so we know whether or not we need to pivot our strategy? Again, part of that continuous improvement process, it's really important that you're constantly looking within, looking at what you're doing, what you can change, and trying to make it better. That seems simple, but oftentimes when we're in the weeds and we feel like we've been, staring at a computer screen or something, for so long, we can't see those things. So it's just really important to step back, take a breather, maybe get somebody else's opinion, and ask for some assistance. And then lastly, have we considered internal talent? That kind of leads us into how to retain your people. But a lot of times our people have skills that we don't know they have, or interests. So a lot of times we need to ask and see what we can find within. So it kind of takes us into how to retain your talent. So first, I want to go over the cost of turnover. So SHRM reported that on average, it costs the company 6 to 9 months of an employee's salary to replace them. So for an employee making just 60 a year, you're looking at a cost of 30 to 45,000 in recruiting, training, filling in the gaps while that person's gone, possibly lost revenue, heavier expenses, maybe you're having to pay, other overtime. So, and it doesn't even include the possible extended turnover that open position might cause other people, because of the stress. So it's really important to think about how you really don't want turnover, right? It's just a burden, and the fact is, you're going to put in the energy either way. You're either going to put the energy in on the front end to try to keep your people and do what you need to, on that end, or you're going to put it on the back end in hiring and doing exit interviews and going to the next person and bringing them in and training somebody else. And it's just a huge time issue. So really what you have to look at is what can you control? When you're looking at retaining your people, we talked about and kind of what they're looking for, and candidates are looking for, their top 5 kind of tangible things. Well, I'm going to pivot to kind of what you can control, but it's more of the items that you can't touch or see necessarily or put in paper, but it's things that matter. So it's engaging your people. One of the biggest things that we hear about why people leave businesses, companies, or why they change, and it's because they didn't feel like they were welcome, they didn't feel connected. Some of them say, my boss never even talked to me, things of that nature. They weren't engaged, and so it's just really important to do that. And the number one way to do that is communication. So the definition of active listening is a communication technique to increase engagement between communicators and their audiences. It involves two-way communication and attention to nonverbal signs that indicate interest and reactions to the message and speaker. So I have 2 boys, 10 and 15, or 11 and 15. And my 15-year-old is a complete teenager right now. He's a really good kid and he's kind of an old soul, but he's still a teenager. He's still 15 and thinks, he needs to be able to be driving a car and whatnot right now. So we often have times where we're trying to communicate and, he's not looking at me or he's not looking at my husband. And I have to say, okay, so I'm communicating with you. So when you're ready, I need you to look at my eyes. So I know that he's listening. Look at me in my eyeballs so that we can, have an active conversation because I want the respect, right, of him paying attention and acknowledging that what I'm saying is important, but I also have to give that to him. Same goes for our teams and our people. If you want to retain your talent that you've already put a lot of time and money into, right, and that's the largest asset at your company, you have to engage with them and actively listen to what they're saying. That doesn't mean that you give in to everything they're needing. It doesn't mean that, that they have the power of everything. What it means is that you're showing respect, you're listening, and that they've been heard. A lot of times people just want to be heard. If I would get a complaint from a parent when I was working in childcare, I would just listen. Just listen. Half the time people just want to be heard. And then even if I didn't resolve it, if I could say, repeat back what they said to me, they felt better. And sometimes they can talk through their own solution. A lot of times people just need to be heard. They want to know that you're interested in hearing them, even if you're not. Time is limited. But again, this takes me back to where we want to spend our energy. You're going to spend it on the front end or the back end because you're going to put it in either way. So you have to figure out where you want to spend that energy. If you've already brought somebody on the team and you think they're worth keeping, then put that energy in. Show them attention, communicate your expectations, communicate what you're needing, what you're wanting, And it also means having kind of those tough decisions about things they might need to change or areas they have that they have to improve on. And that's okay. That's helping them grow and learn. And you can do it in a way where it's much more receptive and it doesn't have to be harsh or anything. But really, communication, listening, making sure you understand what's happening. Of course, when you're listening to somebody, make sure you're not thinking about your rebuttal. Just listen, truly listen, repeat back what they're saying. It's just really important to know that, your people are being heard. And then two, that you're communicating with them. Communication is the number one thing that I've heard for so many years now. Communication was so bad at that company. Oh, they're really bad at communication. I was with another really large organization, really large, worldwide, and communication was the number one issue that I heard about all the time. Well, it's a large organization, that's bound to happen, right? So if you focus on that, a lot of your issues will go away. Sometimes it's realizing that somebody's not a good fit for your company, and that's okay too. In HR, as supervisors, it's our job to sometimes say, you know what, this isn't the best fit. That's all right. Let me help you go on to your next step. No problem. And that can be a tough conversation or awkward conversation, but it can be done, and you can get through it. But just communicate to your people. If you're thinking about something and you need to have a conversation, just pick up the phone and have it. Okay, the next one is authenticity. So the ability to stay true to values and maintain integrity in both personal and professional lives, and from an organizational perspective, approach to forming and maintaining relationships with colleagues and others in the organization. When you are true to who you are as a person, morning and night, no matter where you are, life gets easier for those of you that don't do that. Because you don't have to remember who you are where. Same goes for an organization. When an organization follows its beliefs and values throughout every situation and is consistent and communicates those to their people, there's such a lack of, everything is clear. People don't have to question when something's not clear or it's not communicated clearly, or somebody's values or beliefs on something isn't outlined well. People create their own narrative and their own story to things, and that's not what you want, especially in a business where everything needs to be outlined clearly, for your customers as well. So make sure that you're authentic in how you communicate, and that you're not changing your face, to different people. It needs to be what you see is what you get most of the time. It makes life a lot easier, but then people know that when they have a conversation with you, you're not going to change when you go to the next person, and it builds trust to grow on. So it's just really important. So when you do stay true to your values and you listen to your team, you will find out if they're happy and why if they aren't. And like I said, just before, sometimes you find out they're not happy and you can make changes, right? You can, maybe it's an hours issue, maybe it's a pay issue, maybe it's, they want a second monitor for their computer. It's something simple. But a lot of people, most people, I'm gonna say 90% of people, will not willingly go to their supervisor or their HR team and say, I'm unhappy and here's why. It's just not human nature. We have to be asked. And so I encourage you to ask, go communicate and be authentic, and ask if they're happy. Ask if they're not, why? What are they needing? Again, you might not be able to meet that need, but if they need to go on their way, right, then you can have that conversation. Maybe you can meet their need, but at least either way, and there's less of that gray area, and it can help retain your people, and everybody can have a little bit of respect and dignity in those conversations. It's worth it. Next, learn about skills you didn't know your team had. Recently had a situation where we had a team member who was on one side of our business and learned that she has an accounting background, had no idea, and now she's assisting the other side of the business. And so, because when you hire somebody, you typically have conversations about those skills. You don't sit there and ask them usually, oh, what are your hopes and dreams? What are your aspirations? What are your, hobbies? Tell me all of your skills. No, you're really gearing it towards that job description. So I encourage you to really have those conversations. Again, it's just communication, having those authentic conversations and learning about your people instead of kind of pigeonholing them into one area. Lastly, it allows you to realize what skills gaps you do have in your current team, and then you can discuss if upskilling, training, reskilling, is an option to close those gaps. So again, goes back to those training opportunities, learning and development. How can we invest back in our team to see, if we do want to retain our talent, what's missing? Well, how do we help them grow and help the business at the same time? So that's really it. In short, there's still jobs open. Recruitment efforts are, there's so many variables involved in it, so many pieces to consider, and what people want right now, are those benefits and flexibility and whatnot. But in the end, to retain your current people and to hire the people that you need, I encourage you to have good conversations and keep that communication consistent with your current people, with your new people. Spend the time that you need to on the front end so that you don't have to spend it on the back end trying to replace them with that turnover. It's really important. And if you have any questions, I'm here to help. Would love to help you all with whatever you need. And yeah, love to play some matchmaking, as that's what I get to do here in HireLevel.
Thanks so much,
Erin,
Whitney.
yeah, any questions?
So yeah, so if anybody has questions, now is the time to type those into your message box. We would love to answer anything that maybe has been probing at your mind as Whitney talked here over the last 45 minutes. One thing I really liked about this presentation today, Whitney, is you provided a full circle, kind of like a life, the life cycle of recruitment. And it really starts with taking a step back and how are you attracting those candidates? What avenues are you using? What channels? What are you doing well? What can you improve on? And then really dusting off those old job descriptions. We've all had them, pull them out of the Word documents, pulling out of the file folders, but really looking at those and seeing where you can make matchmaker with your candidates. And I like what you said, Whitney, too, about it starts with, hiring and onboarding and creating that experience that hopefully people don't want to leave. We can't fix everything, but starting on the front end will save you some work on the back end. And then, of course, listen and pivot. We do exit surveys, exit interviews, really just getting to the root of the problem, maybe before it's a problem. So I would highly recommend that if you all are looking into retention or turnover issues. I think that could be super helpful. Well, I don't see any questions. I don't see questions. Whitney, if you're all good, we can wrap up for the afternoon. We appreciate everyone taking the time out of their schedules to tune in with us. Before we hop off, I did want to share what we had coming up for May. So speaking of recruitment, another big topic of conversation is the multi-generational workforce. So we have Shana Allen with SM Coaching. She was with us last year from the St. Louis area. She's coming back next month on the end of May, and she's going to talk all about creating collaboration for multi-generational workforces. So I think that will be also a great one to tune in when thinking about how to manage and communicate with multiple personalities. So join us for that. And if you're not already on our list, you can email directly at hello@hirelevel.com, and I will get that and make sure you're personally registered. But that will wrap up our webinar. Again, thank you everybody so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.